Welcome to another episode of The Producing Half, where ordinary working class people try to understand what's going on with this insane world we live in. Today I want to talk to you about men and women and the difference in the power dynamic between them. You see, I don't know what men are trying to do these days with the trying to force themselves into female competitions and into girls' locker rooms, aside from the usual juvenile angst, junior high pranks or something that are going on out there. But for whatever reason, there's a rash of men who want to go use female facilities. Before we do that, I want to pull up some articles I found because, I'm no expert, so I need experts to tell me what is right and wrong. So first one here let's look at is what motivates men to expose themselves to women without consent? Wonder, poor Louis C.K. there. Although I think he asked permission, so that would be without consent. It's a little misleading there. I don't know who MIC is. The act of masturbating in front of a consenting witness, along with flashing and similar activities, is classified. Okay, I agree with you. When a person exposes themselves to non-consenting witnesses, their motivation often depends on circumstances. Someone who is doing that within the context of specific power over people, power dynamic. Keep that in mind. That has a different flavor than, they say, someone who's on the subway, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's different. I don't know what this article is meaning about it, but it's different because on the subway there's the man-woman thing, but in this situation in like a locker room, it's going to be a man with women. Any sort of exhibitionist behavior, whoever this person is, falls in the same spectrum of a delusional entitlement to do whatever you want, what everyone else, no matter what anyone else thinks, no matter what everyone else thinks, and then some level of embarrassing and shaming the person you're doing it in front of. So you have a delusional entitlement, and you want to shame the person you're doing it in front of it. They get off the thrill of exposing themselves, along with the reaction from the witness. Exposing themselves as regularly as act of exposing yourself, expecting sexually aroused. Okay, they didn't expect you're exposing yourself to someone who isn't expecting that. They're not expecting to be violated in that way, to have this form of violence perpetrated on them. Whoever this clinical and forensic psychologist says, it's a thrill to rough, but there's also a sexual arousing component to it. I would say it's a combination of the reaction you get from the person that you're exposing yourself to, as well as the very act of exposing yourself. The power dynamic of the offender's exposure and their desire for control is often a significant reason behind their actions. Turner, for instance, cited the prevalence of sexual offenders in prison who expose themselves to women staff members as a form of power and control. The prisoners, these are sexual offenders, rapists, molesters, things like that, very much want people to see what they're doing. They want to see that surprise. I just watched a video the other day of a British-sounding woman confronting a woman, although it'd be the same as putting me in a dress type woman, obviously not a woman, and saying, you can't come in this locker room with my daughter, and trying to stop her. And the lack of embarrassment on the man-woman, the trans, I cannot keep track of, is it a trans woman or a trans man? I don't know which one it is. I've tried many times, I just don't get it. So a trans woman is a woman who wants to become a man. No, a trans woman is a man who wants to become a woman. So this trans person wanted to go into this restroom, or locker room, which had little girls in it, and their moms. And this mom, thank the Lord Almighty, was trying to stop this obvious man, 6 foot, 300-pound man, from going into the locker room. It is a form of power and control. The prisoners very much want people to see what they're doing. They want to see the surprise. There's a control factor to it. It's a powerful feeling because you are victimizing someone just by the sheer act of exposing yourself to an unsuspecting female who is in a environment where she expects some sort of privacy and protection. Even if you're not touching them, you're victimizing whoever you're exposing yourself to. This is by a doctor. And I would dare say a leftist doctor, as these psychiatrists and stuff are very liberal people. Let's look at this one. Gender inequality, the key to ending violence against women. What is gender equality? Gender equality occurs when men have a higher status over women and have the ability to control women in different spheres of life. All right. Violence against women is caused by gender inequality, including unequal power relationships. This is very important. It is an unequal power relationship, and I'll get into that, between women and men. Rigid gender roles, I guess, norms and hierarchies, and ascribing women to lower statuses in society. Obviously, they haven't met my wife. Promoting and achieving gender equality is a critical element in the prevention of violence against women. Achieving and eradicating all forms of discrimination against women, blah, blah, blah. Violence against women is a fundamental violation of women's and girls' basic human rights, like the ability to go to a locker room and change without having a 6'4", 300-pound man exposing himself and staring at them, including the right to life and the right to bodily integrity, and the barrier of women's full participation in all spheres of life. If they can't go to the locker room and not expect to be assaulted, to have violence committed against them, I would say that that's violating that. Violence against women is both a cause and consequence of gender inequality and is an abuse of the power imbalances between women and men. I don't see a lot of people talking about this when they're complaining about men going into women's locker room. It is a means of social control that maintains unequal power relationships between women and men. Violence against women is used to enforce gender roles and norms, and assumes that women are inferior to men and that men have the right to control women. All right. By the way, I spent like 5 minutes looking up just some I know what the reality is. Like, I know just instinctually what to say about this subject, as does every man. No, real man knows what to say about this. But I wanted to have some third-party expert sources. Here's another one. This is, why do men expose themselves? It's about power, attention, and control, a psychologist says. So, I don't know what he would have to do about anything. I guess they've had some accusations against him and him. All right, so why do men expose themselves? In these cases, it is often about power, said this clinical psychologist of more than 40 years. To be clear, the most recent allegations aren't your typical blah, blah, blah. That's because they have high power and things like that. Those impulses are not narcissistic, ego-related. Yeah, I agree. It's very narcissistic to think that you can go into a women's restroom when they're in a position and expose yourself and stare at women changing. When they're in a position of power, now these people have influence, but power. We know that men usually have a sexist attitude towards women. This would also be tied to sexual abuse in the man's past. It would have to be in order for them to do that. And then it goes into some arousal and behavior and things like that. Well, here's just some examples of experts who know everything and what they say about that. I have no issue with nudity. It doesn't bother me. I know no woman wants to see me nude, but I wouldn't care if they did. It's not, I'm not a prude. It's not a nudity thing. I don't have a problem with families going to nude beaches, and you have a man and a woman and their children and going to a nude beach where you have other adult people who are nude. In those situations, there is a different power dynamic. There's the family there. And then also the children have probably grown up that way, so they expect it. They don't feel victimized. They're not uncomfortable. And plus, they've probably had discussions about it, and they understand where all the boundaries is. So it's not about being a prude and not know you can't be nude. It has nothing to do with that. You want to be nude in a situation where everybody's on the same page, more power to you. I think men fail to realize that most women don't want to see non-Brad Pitt's nude. And still, probably a lot of women still don't even want to see him nude. That's not what women are into, but I don't think men get that. And I wouldn't even care if a woman comes into my locker room when I'm at the gym. I do go to the gym. It's rare, but I do go. I would not even care if a woman comes into it wouldn't bother me at all. If she wants to come in and hang out and watch a bunch of fat, hairy old men, because it's always the old guys walking around, the 60 and 70-year-olds walking around with no towel or anything on. If they want to come stare at that and look at that, more power to them. I'm glad they enjoy it. Matter of fact, I've been in a locker room when I was changing and women came in or were in, or like a worker comes in, or a dad brings in his... One time it was weird. Dad brought in his, she had to be 12-year-old girl. It didn't bother me for me. I didn't feel victimized. I didn't feel uncomfortable for me. I felt uncomfortable for them. I feel like it's bad for them. That's part of the power dynamic I'm talking about. A man is not okay in a woman's space. It's different. I want to show you a picture to kind of tell you where this is all going and what I'm referencing. And here we go. So this picture kind of says it all. We don't have to argue about man and woman. I don't know whoever this is that either made it or posted it, or what social platform that is. XX, 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 XY. I see an advantage here right off the bat. Look at all these men standing back here, allowing this power imbalance to happen. And women, I think there's women, letting this power dynamic happen. This power imbalance, this assault, this act of violence. It is an act of violence. Letting that happen. What a shame. A woman coming into my locker room, even if I'm there by myself, and this woman comes into my locker room, what's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing's going to happen. She's not going to do anything to me unless she happens to be the one of the very one in 10,000 women out there who could do something to me. She's an expert MMA fighter. What's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen to me. There is no fear. There is no apprehension on my part. I feel no violation. I have no concern over how that interaction is going to occur. Nothing's going to happen. I'm not even remotely worried about it for multiple reasons other than just pure physical differences. And the fact that what a woman is, into and what a man's into. And they're completely opposite in that situation. Men in women's locker rooms is not okay. If I were to go into a women's locker room, even if I put some lipstick on and chucked on a dress and became the ugliest woman on earth and walked into a woman's locker room, there is a power differential there. There is a power dynamic there. I can do things, even if there's multiple women there. There's a lot I can do that they could not stop. Plus, it's an act of violence in itself, because these aren't people who went to a nude beach and they know there's going to be nudity. They expect it and they're part of that. These are women who are in a locker room who expect privacy. They expect to only be around other females. They have a sense of security. And then this man, obvious man, walks in and either exposes themselves, which we already went through those articles, we know what that's all about, or is looking at these women and when they feel very weak and vulnerable and exposed. That is an act of violence. I don't understand why people don't understand that. It is different when you're in an expected private place, a protected place, or when you're on some public nude beach. That is a different scenario that has to be respected. So you got that swimmer, Leah Thomas. How we as a society ever let it get here is beyond... Now, okay, I understand the society part. It is all orchestrated and planned. But as we as parents, as men, ever let it get to this? How did... Now, I heard Tim Pool talk about this, and I understood his point. I got it. He's wrong in his expectations of what these children should do. He went off and said he's not going to get involved. He's not going to argue for the kids' sake, the other girls who are swimming with this person, because they're doing it. They're participating, and they're not complaining. Why is he going to go out and fight for them when they're not fighting for themselves? Well, these are children, really. We have restructured society in that people don't become adults. We keep them as children. We keep them mentally as children. We keep them socially as children. Like, the whole power of that relationship is different now. And so even though they're technically adults in college, they're children still. So he expects them to stand up against everything, against this new social norms, against the institutions that they have been brainwashed to follow unquestionably their entire life, against their parents, who are probably telling them, just do, you need this scholarship, don't make any waves, against everything in society, the media, the politicians, the institutions that they're trying to participate in. They expect them to stand up against it all. Tim Pool expects them to stand up against it all. I don't. I get it. He is a stronger person than them, and he is not wrong in what he's saying is not wrong, but his expectations are skewed because he's not taking it into account the way society is now compared to when he was their age, and his personality is just stronger. He's a more accomplished person than them. So it's different. I don't blame the girls who swam. I blame the parents that let it. I blame every single man that was there and didn't stop it. I blame the administration. I blame the coaches. I blame the schools. We as adults, men, now I know white men have failed this country. We're just set back and letting the whole thing go down the tube because we don't want to be called racist or sexist or homophobes or whatever. So we're just going to let the whole country burn so we don't have to have the dreaded R tattooed on our forehead. But men need to stop it. They need to stand up and stop this ridiculousness, this assault on women. It is an act of violence that a man is committing on women and we're not doing anything about it. We need the fathers to stop this. We have to put an end to this ridiculous farce. I don't care if you can pass. If you can pass as a woman and you want to go use a woman's restroom, who's going to stop you? Who's going to know? You're just going to go. No one's going to say a word, and you're going to leave. If you can pass as a woman and you want to go into a woman's locker room, well, as long as you don't strip down, unless you're post-op, but as long as you don't strip down completely nude, who's going to know? There's not going to be any drama. The women aren't going to be feeling victimized because you pass as a woman. I've seen on Tim Pool's show and on Michael Malice's show, there is a trans podcaster. I don't know her name. I'm bad about names. But I would, if I saw her walk into a woman's restroom or locker room, I wouldn't say a thing. I wouldn't stop her. Hey, you can't go in there. You're a man. I wouldn't say a word. Looks like a woman to me. I have friends who have done this from high school and on. And if they can pass, then there is no drama. They're not doing what we just saw in those articles because there is no gratification. They're not going in there for that reason. They can pass. They went through everything. They got their hair. They've done their voice. They've shaved their Adam's apple. They've had breast augmentations. I know one that's post-op. Can probably pass 99.99999% of the time with everybody. And so there is no drama with that. It is these behemoths that are obviously men, who are obviously doing this for the drama, who are obviously doing this for the same reason that people expose themselves with their coats open to kids walking home from school. It's so obvious that they're doing it that way. And we're not going to say anything because of the trans movement. It has nothing to do with the trans movement. These are men abusing girls. That's all this is. It is men abusing women, and society encourages it. Society accepts it. It's going to be the population in America, the foreign population, the first generation people, the people of color. They're going to put a stop to this because they don't have the same weakness that white people have right now about being called names and, dreaded racist and sexist. And I've seen the videos of the non-American, like there was that one place in California where they had all the protests in front of because it was either an Oriental or a Mexican woman who was like, oh, this ain't happening. Or no, it was a black lady. I think it was a black lady. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It was a woman having to stand up for other women's rights because the men around them aren't doing it. No, the man is trying to get in there so he can perv on these girls and then expose himself. We've got to stop this. I could become, and I'm a broken person, can become an elite women's athlete in some sports, I'm sure. Because of genetic advantages. And I'm not even really addressing that with these athletes who now want to compete as women. I mean, there was that one podcaster, black guy, Zuby maybe? Don't quote me. Where he became like the new woman's weightlifter, just to prove how ridiculous. He wasn't a weightlifter. He's not a weightlifter. He could not even remotely compete in the men's world. It's not the same. Men and women are different. There's a million things that women are better than men at. And there's some things that men are better than women at. When it comes to physical strength, I think women have better endurance, though. I saw something where women might be better fighter pilots. They can take the G's better, maybe. Not sure about that, but I think I remember saying something like that. And women have, I think women might be able to beat some men endurance swimming. I think I saw something about that where they have longer endurance than men. Maybe the higher body fat content or something. I don't know. I just know that there's a difference. There's a difference between men and women. And this whole allowing men to use females' facilities has got to stop. And the men need to stop it. The parents should have stopped Leah Thomas from competing against those girls. Should have kept Leah Thomas out of the locker rooms. The parents should have stopped it. The men there should have stopped it. Whenever we see these violences against little girls, because that's what this is, that's the whole Leah Thomas is, it's a violence against little girls. When we see these things in society, we have to stop them. No matter the consequences that the media is going to thrust upon us. It does not matter. We, as men, need to stop it. We need to prevent this ridiculousness, this evil, this violence on women. We need to stop it from happening. I don't know how much plain I can be on this subject. And I don't know what I know the people I know that are trans are not for any of this because they're real trans. They want to pass as a woman. They feel like a woman. They want to be a woman. They want to look like a woman. They don't want any drama or attention on themselves. They just want to be a normal woman. And so I don't understand that. It's not my cup of tea. Whatever. If you're not hurting anybody, what does it matter to anybody what you do? Do whatever you want to do. None of my business. But it's these women that are obviously men, and it's obvious the reason they're doing it. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it is what it is. We've got to put a stop to it. So, I challenge you, if you see these violences against women out there, if you see these assaults on women, stop it. Do what it takes to stop it. Stand up. Say something. We all have to, because the media is against these poor girls. The politicians are against these poor girls. The institutions everybody's against them. So it's up to us to stand up and put a stop to it. That's really all I got to say about this issue right now. I mean, it's such a black and white. It's hard to talk about it because it's just a factual black and white issue. You know, it's like I can just keep going on and on, but it's just obvious and it's just black and white. If you're a woman, you're a woman, and you're a man, you're a man. If you can pass as a woman, then nobody's going to say a word. If you can't, stay the hell out of the bathroom. Stay out of the locker rooms. And no man should ever be competing against women in women's sports. It's just a fact of nature. It is the sign of the collapse of our society. This is the collapse of our society, and we're all just going to be afraid to say anything about it because we don't be racist. We don't want to be bigots or homophobes. It's nothing to do with that. Men, please, put a stop to it.